What is going on, guys? Yo, it is GZTV. We are back with another video. We are finally back to reviewing movies after a long re-review series for Stranger Things, but let's get into it. Man, I did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. We have Roofman, the 2025 release. We're going to be covering a lot of 2025 releases here up until April, probably, when Euphoria and Stranger Things Tales from 85 drops, so those are exciting. But this is one of those movies where you go in thinking you're getting a pretty standard based on a true story kind of crime film, and instead you get something that's way more emotional, way more personal, and honestly way more fun than it has any right to be. And the craziest part, it's Channing Tatum. That Channing Tatum, the guy from Magic Mike, the guy from 21 Jump Street and all of the Jump Street movies, the goofy, charismatic, always funny guy, comes in here and gives what might actually be one of the most complete performances of his career and probably one of the better performances of last year. And it still feels like Channing Tatum. That's what makes this movie so interesting, and we're going to get into it here in a second. So just kind of getting into a premise, you guys know how these videos go. Let me refresh you. Obviously, we have the premise, the good, the bad, the okay. Give it a review, give it a rating. Let's get into the premise. I'm going to try not to spoil it, but I mean, if you know the story of Jeffrey Manchester, you know exactly what happened here. Roofman is based on the true story, again, of Jeffrey Manchester, a guy who became known for breaking into buildings through the roof, you know, cutting the hole like a fucking old school cheesy spy movie. Yeah, that was him. Hence the name Roofman. It was his nickname. But what makes the story different is that the movie doesn't really focus on the crimes themselves. Instead, it focuses on who he becomes while he's on the run, kind of his development as a person. There's this entire stretch of the movie where he's living under a fake identity, forming relationships both friendly and romantic with obviously Kiersten Dunst, building a life that almost feels normal, and that's really what the movie is about. Again, it's not about the crimes itself, and I think that is a very unique angle to take for a less serious comedic thing, because this is a very comedic, humorous situation at first place. It's about a guy who could have been something great, you know, with his intelligence, but made a few bad decisions and just kept going down that path that started with a couple of robberies, you know, McDonald's, Burger King, Blockbuster, and then it just turned into something. And this movie tells the story of that, how he tried to live a normal life, but it was never going to work out for him, and that's kind of the moral of the story. So let's break it down into the good. I mean, first things first, the absolute highlight of this movie is Channing Tatum. He absolutely carries this movie. And what's so impressive is that he doesn't completely reinvent himself. This isn't a completely different role or like a different personality, a different type of character than what he normally does. He's used to playing a very scandalous, kind of crime-ridden individual who can be very goofy and seems very normal and charismatic and, you know, athletic and good-looking and the lady lover. That's exactly what Jeffrey Manchester was, and it's perfect. It is one of the most perfect castings I've seen from the last year. He just adds layers onto himself as well. Again, he's not reinventing the wheel with himself as an actor and his legacy and all this stuff. He's just adding to his repertoire. I mean, he's still, again, goofy, like awkward, all that stuff. But now there's kind of like true emotions being felt with his performance. You have guilt, you have the loneliness of him sitting in the Toys R Us, like on the run, like, is this even worth it? Should I just turn myself back in? This isn't really the life I imagined for myself. And then just the emotional depth, you know, the romance, the family man that he kind of turns into. It works perfectly for this character. It works perfectly for this situation because Jeffrey Manchester isn't just some like evil mastermind. He's not some intimidating criminal. Like, he's not some macho man, like a head honcho of a gang or anything like that. He's just a guy that decided to make these decisions, had an idea, and obviously it's not the right thing to do. And Channing Tatum plays that so well. There are so many moments where you're watching him and thinking, man, this dude actually seems like a good person, and you want to root for him. And then you remember what he's done. It's kind of like the same situation you'd get out of a show like Breaking Bad, Ozark, all this stuff like the money laundering and all that. Like, you really like them as characters. They seem like good guys. They're funny. They're badass. You're like completely on their side. But again, you have to remember what they have done and just kind of that internal conflict. That's what drives the entire movie, is because, and it is a hired concept and it's used in all sorts of media, but it is great. Again, he's doing all these crimes, but he's a very goofy, likable guy. You know, it's very silly. He's hiding up in a Toys R Us, sleeping in Spider-Man bed sheets, you know, rocking anime shirts and like wearing girls' shoes, running around with bears on his head and floaties and these goofy ass sunglasses. Like, he's a very fun guy, but at the end of the day, he is hurting others for his own personal gain, and you can't support that. And it's crazy that they kind of dive into that. Another thing I loved about this movie is just the tone of it. It's just not your typical crime thriller. Matter of fact, it's not even a crime thriller at all, even though this type of situation warrants that. They've ditched the seriousness and just straight get into the comedy of a absolute debacle that you get in with this man. It's not intense or dark. I mean, obviously, like, the ending is pretty dark, and again, I'll try not to get too much into that, but you should know his story by now. It's not like suspenseful, like he's not constantly looking out. I mean, obviously he's a very careful, calculated criminal, but it's not really portrayed like that in the movie. Like, he knows the routine of everyone, and he's kind of just living day by day like it's all normal, even though it's not. It leans a lot into comedy, a lot more than any other theme, a lot more than any other genre. This is a comedy. If I were to advertise this to someone, I'd say this is a comedy. It's also got the romance in it with him and Kiersten Dunst, and that is a genuine relationship. And there's just slice of life moments. There's just all sorts of things you could take from this film, and it's great. It was the best decision they could have made. It makes for one of the most unique movie experiences I've had from the last year, because the situation itself is already insane. The man is literally living inside a toy store, doing all this crazy shit, eating candy like a kid, and like Peter Dinklage, who shout out to him, we've seen him in so many things up to this point. He's like, oh, where did all the peanut M&Ms go? Oh, where did all these video games go? The guy's pawning the video games, he's eating the M&Ms, and they're all peanut M&Ms, which is kind of dumb of him as a criminal to do anyway, but that's besides the point. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous situation to put yourself in because of the bad decisions you've made in the past, and the movie absolutely embraces that. I mean, obviously at the same time though, it never loses the emotional core. It does a really good job at balancing everything, seriousness and comedy alike, because underneath all that weirdness, this is a story about kind of a lonely man that's trying to like make something out of his life and impress the people he loves and all this stuff, kind of about regret of the decisions he made to get to that point, because obviously he knew at the end of the day it probably hurt more than help those around him. Those people were still thankful for the time they had with him though, so it's very unique of a situation, and this movie does such a good job with the execution of telling that story. It's about someone trying to create a life that they know they don't deserve, and just like the emotion and the relationships, like the emotional side of this movie, this is where it really surprised me, because obviously you get throughout how goofy this movie is, and it is a comedy. The relationship with Lee, that absolutely works, and Kiersten Dunst and Channing Tatum is a match made in heaven for a movie like this. It works, like really works. You understand exactly why she likes him, you know, his good looks, his charm, how good he is with the ladies at the singles dinner at Red Lobster and all this stuff, why he's drawn to her, kind of a girl trying to make ends meet for her children. She's single, divorced, just like he is, obviously for different reasons, and why that relationship feels meaningful, even though it's built on a lie. And that's what makes it hit harder at the end, because you know from the beginning it's not going to end well. Again, I've said this many times in the video, but the movie does such a good job of making you live in that moment with them and make it seem like everything is okay. And when things start to fall apart, it obviously lands because of what they built up for. And that's not easy to pull off in a story like this. Again, I know this actually happened, but just for the sake of like pulling off a story and executing it on screen, it's crazy. Like, you're dealing with a criminal and somehow you're still rooting for him, which is very unique. So I think that's all the good. I had a lot to say there. So getting into the bad, there certainly are some underused elements, even for this movie being over 2 hours long. I do still think there is stuff they missed out on from the real case, like after reading up on it and what they kind of hyped it up to be. So this is kind of the negatives. These aren't crazy negatives. I still really enjoy this movie, and this is going to be an overall positive review. I mean, these are some of the best critically acclaimed movies of the last year, so how can I not? I just kind of want to spread some positivity for this. For a movie called Roofman, though, we don't see the robberies as much, and like not just the robberies, like the iconicness of him sawing through a roof. We saw that twice. Pretty disappointing, I'm gonna be honest, because the few times we do see it, it's really fun. It's awesome. Like the whole cutting through the roof, sneaking into places, getting in and out clean, and I guess we can talk about the pacing here in a second. I guess they did kind of lull with him staying at Toys R Us too long, and like too many of the moments of it's fun, but he's by himself, so it's whatever. It's a unique concept, and the movie kind of just glosses over just what is this guy's MO, what kind of gives him his gig as a criminal, and that's a bit strange. I would have loved a little more attention, a little more detail to what made this guy nicknamed the Roofman, and just more of those sequences. More robbings of the McDonald's, like different situations. I don't know if he returned to the same chain over and over. It's hard to know. I mean, it's kind of dumb to rob the same place twice. I wanted to know that, and we didn't get it. I mean, again, it made him famous. The beginning of the movie feels rushed, just kind of getting into that. I think that's kind of the big issue with that. They speed through like how he kind of gets caught initially, because it literally goes from him on the roof, sawing through the McDonald's, all that that stuff, and some news reports are going on, to him literally being at his daughter's birthday party, giving her this shitty gift that she didn't want that was from his childhood, and then it laps all the way to where he gets all the money and he's living very nicely. And then how he builds his reputation. I don't know. I think it deserved more time. The movie was like 20 to 30 minutes longer. I honestly think it benefits from that. Most Hollywood movies are that long anyway, so I wouldn't really be complaining about that. Just the predictability of this all can obviously go into the bad, and it is going to inevitably be in the bad because it's a true story. You could read up on the case before you watch the movie. Now, obviously, that's kind of a lame thing to do. You can pretty much tell how it's going to end, kind of who's going to turn on him. Like, you see Lee looking at him in the Toys R Us as he's robbing them one last time, and she sees his face and has this look like, holy shit, is that Jeffrey? What's going to happen emotionally? I mean, even certain moments like Lee's reaction, you can see that coming from a mile away. But at the same time, I mean, it's a true story. There's only so much you can change. I'm sure they did kind of diverge from the truth a little bit, but again, only so much you can do there. So getting into the okay, just like the style of the film and the supporting cast for the most part is a little mixed for me. It's a solid supporting cast. Honestly, Kiersten Dunst, I don't even know if I'd count her as the supporting cast. She is a main star in this film because for about an hour and a half of the movie, I don't really remember how far in the movie he met her, but I think like with an hour and a half left in the movie, she really gets her time to have this relationship with him. But you get Lakeith Stanfield, very subtle, but a really good addition as kind of like this friend of his who also has some dirt on his name, also does this like criminal shit with like the fake identities and the passports and like helping criminals get out. That's actually a perfect outlet, of course, for Jeffrey to like be who he is. Obviously, Lakeith Stanfield, he's great. He was in Atlanta. You see him in Get Out. I love him from that. So him being included here and like him with his girlfriend and Jeffrey's calling their phone like, oh, what was his name? Cousin Oliver. I'm gonna see you December 1st at this time or whatever. It's fucking crazy. Peter Dinklage brings some fun moments, and the whole thing with like Lakeith's character, Steve, I think his name is, and his girlfriend, like his girlfriend knowing what he does and like putting the wigs on. I think that's great. I think that made for some really fun scenes. Peter Dinklage as this kind of like stern boss who is a dwarf. I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. He is a dwarf, and obviously it's kind of fucked up to like make fun of someone's physical appearance, but that adds some comedy. Like he's bitching around Otis, and like eventually Otis like is trying to become more assertive, and Lee is kind of trying to like give him a pep talk and like get him to kind of stand up to the man, and he finally does that during a armed robbery. That's really cool. That's a cool full circle moment. Make no mistake, this is Channing Tatum's movie though, which is why that's kind of in the okay. Direction wise, it's nothing flashy. It doesn't really need to be. It is a true story, so I'm kind of mixed on that. I can understand that some people like spectacle. You know, you're used to watching movies from Marvel with Stranger Things just ending. It feels grounded, simple, authentic. I think that kind of works in its favor, and that's kind of what this movie was supposed to be. So that is all I have. So getting into my review, I mean, at the end of the day, Roofman is just a really unique film. It's not like any film I've ever seen before. I've never really seen a true story told this fun. It takes a story that should feel dark and serious and turns it into something emotional, funny, weirdly wholesome at times. You shouldn't root for this guy, but you absolutely do. Not only because Channing Tatum does such a good job of portraying the character, but just the personality of the guy himself. And that's just the magic of the movie, no pun intended with Tatum there. I don't know if this is something I'd rewatch a ton. I would completely understand if this has rewatch value for you, but I'm really glad I experienced it. It is a genuinely surprising, emotional, and entertaining film that proves Channing Tatum has way more range than people give him credit for. And it's kind of crazy, pretty much 15 years after the smash hits of the Jump Street films, we get like a critically acclaimed Channing Tatum role. How crazy is that? How some of these actors in Hollywood can really turn it around for themselves. With that being said though, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. I am actually quite high on this movie, especially as a comedy, especially as a comfort and a feel-good movie. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of Roofman, and if you want more reviews like this, I mean, you already know what to do. Comment on that as well. We will be covering 2025 movies for the next couple of months. I'm just zoning out on TV shows, and we're getting straight back into cinema. I think it is a great move for me, so let me know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. It has been your boy GZTV. Go check out the socials, do whatever you want to do. Support is optional, but it is very much appreciated around here. It definitely motivates me to make more content, but I just do this because it's a hobby. I've picked up movies over the last couple of years, and I've just ran with it completely. So have a good rest of your day, night, wherever, whenever you are watching this. It has been GZTV. Have a good weekend, all that jazz.